Okay, awesome. So as always, I have the same disclaimer script, which will happen at the beginning of every meeting. So I'm communicating today in my official capacity on behalf of the FedRAMP Program Management Office at the General Services Administration. To ensure effective engagement and transparency with industry, I will be sharing information based on what I know at the present time. The information I plan to share today is provided to enhance transparency between industry and the FedRAMP PMO, but it is possible that some of this information may change at a later date because no final decisions have been made at this time. However, I think it is important to have this dialogue so we can move forward in a transparent manner, but I wanted you to have that context before I got into the substance of my presentation. My commitment to you is to continue this dialogue and share any new developments as soon as I can. Additionally, any reference in this conversation to any specific commercial product, process, or service, or the use of any trade, firm, or corporation name is for the information and convenience of the public and does not constitute endorsement, recommendation, or favoring by GSA. Okay, awesome. I'm going to go over a little bit of housekeeping. So, as always, we've turned off the ability to unmute yourself so that we don't have to chase down interruptions. And discussions and collaboration may still take place in the GitHub discussions board created for this working group. The link is on the screen. We also have today a dedicated questions thread for this meeting. And so you can feel free to post things in the Q&A related to anything that we talked about before. But we also have an exciting roundtable discussion with some of our draft submission reviewers today. And we have the Q&A thread open for that too. So you can post in Zoom, you can post in GitHub, whichever one works better. Cool. And with that, today's agenda, we're going to talk about shaking up some of the working groups. And then we're going to go into an overview of GitHub discussion so far. We're going to talk a little bit about some pilot updates. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to go over some of the draft submission, generalized feedback and observations with the help of Emu and Paul. And then we're going to talk about discussion starters and next steps. Okay, so there will be some big changes starting tomorrow in terms of how to find us. So for that reason, keep paying attention to the current repository boards and channels of communication. However, to elaborate on that, and I know that I read this slide to you every week, but hold on because our menu options have changed. So we've been running these community working groups for 2 months now, and we've learned a lot. And since we're now in the active piloting and guidance phase, we have decided to consolidate our working groups into one big overarching GitHub repository. And then on top of that, we will have two underlying working groups contained inside of that same repository, one related to 20X and one related to Rev 5. This consolidation will take place tomorrow, so stay tuned. And all of the current repositories and everything, they will still exist, but they will just sort of be closed, archived, and everything should migrate over to that big repository that we'll be releasing tomorrow. Um, these two working groups will meet on an alternating biweekly basis on Wednesdays. So next week, which is June 4th, on Wednesday at this time, the Rev 5 working group will meet. And then the following Wednesday, which is June 11th at 1 o'clock, the new 20X working group will meet. And the 20X working group will sort of be a union between automating assessment, continuous reporting, and applying existing frameworks. So as before, the intent is to meet for 30 minutes to an hour, and the meetings will still be touch points to provide updates on progress both within this group and the greater FedRAMP 20X community. And so the majority of the engagement and work will take place on the GitHub repository, and one of our guiding principles is for all work to take place in public with maximum transparency. And working in GitHub discussions ensures that all community members, present and future, will have access to our work. So again, we're sort of in this awkward place where we're like, we'll be changing it tomorrow, but like the old one is still open. So for today, still post on the automating assessment. Tomorrow we'll switch over and you will have more information posted to the GitHub repository boards, the website. There will be an e-blast. So keep that in mind. Awesome. I'm going to pass it off to Dan to talk a little bit about the community working group discussions. I will go ahead and present this slide. So, since this is the last week of the legacy version of community working groups before we consolidate moving forward, we thought we would do a recap of engagement across all the working groups as a sort of a last hurrah. Um, you'll still see us. It's not a last hurrah, but like out with the old, in with the new. So all discussions from the working group will be transferred over and sorted into a new consolidated repository. And just as a reminder, GitHub discussion board will continue to be the best place to get your questions answered. So since our working group started, here are our overall top contributors. Um, we have for the last 2 weeks and all time. And then we also consolidated all of the individual discussions, top level comments, and comment replies from the last 2 weeks as well as total. So you can see we've had a lot of engagement on these boards, which we're really excited about. And we want to keep that participation going. Um, in the new repository as well. So just because our office location is changing, that doesn't mean that you can't still participate. And in fact, we strongly encourage it. Um, I'm gonna now pass it off to Dan, who appears to have successfully unmuted, and he will go over some updates surrounding the 20X Phase 1 pilot.
Awesome. Thanks, Kylie. Sorry for our technical difficulties there. So first of all, I just want to thank everyone for their feedback on the RFCs, the request for comments. The RFC that was most relevant to the Phase 1 pilot, of course, is the KSI standard, which is now closed. We expect to release the final KSI shortly after we get the go-ahead from the FedRAMP board. Okay, second thing, so last week we began accepting draft submissions. We've been really impressed by the ones we've seen so far, and we'll talk about them more in depth in a few moments. If you're planning to submit your offering for authorization, we strongly recommend that you take a look at the draft submissions so far and our feedback on them to help you have a successful package. Once again, I just want to remind everybody that this is the most flexible phase of the 20X Phase 1 operation. We want you to be creative and innovative, and if you look at the draft submissions so far, you'll see a lot of that. We're planning to use the Phase 1 submissions, both draft and final, to inform more specific standards and guidance in future phases. We're seeing a lot of value from the draft submissions being shared openly. There's been a great exchange of ideas and open discussions, which is really making this process so much stronger. So we really encourage people, if you have something, if you've been on the fence about it, to go ahead and submit your package either as draft or final so that we can benefit from your perspective as we go forward with final guidance. Most of the activity on the GitHub boards over the last week has been related to the 20X draft submissions. And so, as we said, we want to focus on that in today's session. So we're going to pass the mic over to the FedRAMP team members who've been leading the review and compiling feedback on those submissions for a little roundtable. So welcome, Emu and Paul. Both fully capable of unmuting themselves.
I would wait till we actually unmute before you drive to that one.
I have faith in you.
Alrighty, so Paul, I guess first of all, I just want to thank everybody. Like, this has been awesome. Seeing all the public submissions, seeing folks that are iterating. Like, we're seeing packages that were submitted very early last week and getting updated, if not on a daily basis, every couple of days. We are seeing folks learning from other folks, and some of the latest packages that we've seen are taking like direct feedback that either we provided, other folks on the discussion provided, and seeing it directly incorporated in. So thank you so much for that. That work is awesome. And I really want to shout out to A. Burroughs, as well as a certain turn of the century purple dinosaur, for sharing is caring, and specifically the sharing is caring model that was called out for this pilot process. We are all better together. And these discussions is really exciting to see, not just us engage in, but other folks, whether it be CSPs, SMEs, or 3PAUs. Paul, what are some cool stuff that you have been seeing that you appreciate?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I want to echo all the comments you made, especially for those folks who are doing an open submission, right? These working groups have a totality of more than 1,000 individual people, in totality, right? So putting your stuff out there for review and feedback, right, takes a lot of gusto, right? And I greatly appreciate y'all being some of the forerunners to this, and just seeing the evolutionary nature of from the first person who published to kind of where we're at now is huge. And it's funny, I didn't look at the slides beforehand. It's Dan and Kylie's working group, but when I saw the top 5 contributors, having been in y'all's threads the last few weeks, didn't surprise me. Didn't surprise me at all. But I think, outside of the community impact and feedback, I think granularity was huge. And I think, like I said, if you look at the first submission to kind of where we're at now, we've hit a level of granularity that I think is super important, right? To the point where we're seeing people submit their scripts of like, hey, here's how I'm going to pull, the encryption status from the 3 different types of data stores, right? Here's also how I ensure that those 3 types of data stores are the only data stores that I have within the entire enterprise in an automated fashion as well, so that we know, like, hey, not only is encryption enabled in all of these, but it is the totality of the data stores, right? Like things like that. I think are at the level where we need to see, right? I think the other piece is the iterative approach, right? From someone who's tasked to review, it's much easier for me to take, hey, a high level concept paper, right, that you've drilled down into like 3 or 4 component level scripts, right, to see like, hey, here's our high level concept. Here's how we achieve it with one sub portion of a KSI, right? Like, how does that look? Give us feedback, things like that. I think that approach is huge. It saves a ton of time for me versus reading 600-page documents, which on my Rev 5 side of the house I do pretty daily. And it's just an excellent approach to quickly iterate without having to put too much effort in on your first submission. And doing so early allows us to give you feedback early so that we can hit kind of this June 1st hopefully deadline to an actual submission. Anything? Oh, trust centers, right? If you haven't noticed, right, the significant change notification standard went out. Trust centers was a big portion of what we modeled some of the SDN content around, or not, I'm sorry, not the SDN content, the repo standard transitions content around, to see everyone, or to see some groups publish this in their trust centers, to be able to look at their trust centers, see how they're set up, see how they're visually depicted, I think was huge for us. Normally, as a Rev 5 reviewer, a lot of the submissions I see are in the traditional USDA Community Connect portal, right? So being able to kind of see how everyone's set up was super money as well, and also gave us some insight into how we change some of the repo standards to adjust for what's currently there. Emu, over to you on some of the highlights.
Well, and just kind of what you mentioned about the RFC, like just kind of so everybody kind of gets a feel for how the sausage is made as we're going through these packages, as we're going through feedback, as we're having conversations, things are coming up. Like folks are starting to think ahead about non-repudiation, as an example, having not only like hashes for scripts and validating that against the original, and then having, you know, anything that was evaluated by the 3POW being signed off by a PGP key. You know, we're starting to get into the mindset, wheels are starting to turn, where it's like, okay, well, that script that's being used, where does that fall into this significant change notification process? And this kind of model that we're going with of we're putting out the standard and then we're following up with technical assistance, best practices, all the things that we're learning, that we're discussing out in the open, we're going to be able to bring in and pull in to that, in, you know, documentation and update that guidance, you know, kind of to pair with the standards, update those things much more frequently. And then another thinking ahead is I just happened to check in on a post from Infusion Point right before this, and they have a Kanban dashboard. So it's just really interesting to see what people are delivering and how they're building and iterating, you know, on top of what others have been contributing to this pilot effort. So, you know, we really are starting to build a pilot community, and that is awesome. We have not necessarily taken a look in extremely great detail of every single package we have received yet. We are working on that. We're bringing in more people into the fold this week and next week to start going through more of those. And if you know, we absolutely accept packages privately, but in terms of feedback, you know, if we accept a package privately, we're providing more general feedback and general guidance on the mega thread. But if you post your submission, you know, on its own thread, we are going to give you feedback on that thread. So if you have not seen that feedback yet, it will be coming, you know, absolutely. We're going to continue to look at it and, you know, iterate ourselves. Paul,
Yeah,
any other
no,
comments?
I love that you started talking about the things that we either didn't natively take into account as we, you know, built some of this, or things we were kind of surprised about, or just things that maybe my person didn't think about right, myself didn't think about right. Is really, you talked about the Kanban piece, and for someone who lives 80% of his life in the Rev 5 world, right, and for 20% I get to play with y'all in 20x, right? You know, the Kanban piece and how we transition this automated assessment a little bit more seamlessly to a Kanban approach is huge, and at least seems a lot easier, right? Because, you know, as we go to this automating assessment portion, right, you've got the ability to continually assess your entirety of your infrastructure, right? And how we transition from a just initial point in time assessment to maybe a more approach where we're using this as live Kanban as well, and looking at a lot of the trust centers, right? A lot of your trust centers are almost already built through this, right? And I don't want to call out people specifically, so it doesn't look like I'm giving people favors or whatever, or favorism or whatever. But you know, a lot of the trust centers, and I would ask that, like, if you're looking at the submissions, look at the submissions with trust centers in there, right? A lot of them already have kind of stoplight charts that are built. I mean, you can almost take this automated assessment approach, build it into a stoplight approach, and instead of going from like a traditional assessment to a monthly reporting, you could almost go to a live reporting, right? So if I'm a ISSM or a system owner and I want to know the posture at any point in time, right? Since we're continually automating the assessment, right? I can check at any point in time. And then you can almost go a step further, right? And as a previous ISSM on multiple projects, right? You could go, instead of a push mechanism at a frequency and time, right? You could almost say, like, hey, out of the KSIs and the parameters collected, these are the 16 most important ones to me. I'm making this number up, right? Like, I want to be notified, right? If one of these fall out of variance, or here's the variance parameters that I'm setting, I want to be notified. So instead of being in full reactive mode, which I believe is kind of where we're at in a lot of the Rev 5 process, the Rev 5 assessment process, right? We can actually transition into proactive Kanban from a systems owner's perspective, right? Where we could see, you know, kind of the individual attributes that are unique to us or interested to us. So that's something pretty cool. I think the other conversation in here that I greatly enjoy is how the 3PAO transitions to help support this, right? And I know there's some conversation of, you know, like, hey, where do they fit in there? I think Paul Augusta's personal opinion, right? Not one of FedRAMP's, right? I think there's the role definitely transitions, right? But I think instead of the traditional approach where we're heavy at the end of a process, a very long process for the assessment, right, and then we come back every year, right, and reassess, right? I think it's more trickled throughout the life cycle, and I think instead of, like I said, being at the end, you're almost at the front verifying the process of the assessment, right? That the automated portion is both valid and measures. And I'm gonna, Tanner, I see you in here, so I'm not gonna pretend I made this up like I was gonna do earlier. But it becomes more of an adequacy and sufficiency validation, which I think is a beautiful statement, Tanner. So yeah, no, just a lot of, I think, exciting things that we need to take into account as we move forward. I am round spent emu, and I've probably blabbed enough that everyone's tired of listening to me.
Uh, let's see. Do we have any questions we can answer? It looks like mostly about links and where
Yeah,
to.
they're mostly logistical, so I took care of them. Um,
All right. You're
yeah.
awesome. Thank you.
I feel like you guys also are posting feedback under the public submissions too, right? Like more specific granular feedback.
Yeah. So if organization posted in a separate thread that said, "Hey, here's Paul Augusta's Cool System One submission," right? We are going to post the granular feedback in that submission, right? And when we find things that we not necessarily don't like, but like we're going to ask probing questions, right? And it's to indicate things that like we haven't either thought through yet, or we need the community's help to think through, or that just may not be at where your concept or your prototype is, right? But we'll also always double back and go to the main mega thread and say one of two things, right? We'll either post a generic response there that says, "Hey, we posted in Paul Augusta's super cool System One thread. Here's the link. Go see it." Or like, "Hey, here's some more trends that we're starting to see." Whether based on the private submissions or some of the more public submissions. We'll try to get to that one every few days as well.
Cool. Um, this is awesome. Okay. I know we're like running out of time for today. Um, but I just wanted to flag there's a new discussion starter surrounding the identity and access management KSI. So just like every week, we're kind of like iterating through the different KSIs and talking about which ones can be automated, which ones can't, how do we auto-generate evidence, and how could these KSIs be assessed? Oh, I see more questions. Um, One says, do NIST 853 controls reference for each KSI need to be assessed? No. Um, we kind of see the KSIs as an abstraction of the NIST 853, so don't even worry about the NIST 853. Focus on the KSIs and validating the KSIs. Okay, cool. You guys can answer these discussion questions on GitHub. And for next steps, as a reminder, the new 20X working group will meet during this scheduled meeting on Wednesday, June 11th at 1 p.m. The meeting invite will remain the same for the 20X one. Pretty much the automating assessment one will just be renamed to 20X. So if you are already invited to this one, you should be fine. The Rev 5 invite should stay the same. We haven't like switched it over yet, but we're just hoping to keep the invite link the same and just change the dates to Wednesday instead of Monday. So that should be how that goes. Um, and then also, if you're interested in bringing forward a topic, prototype, or idea, if you want to like talk more in depth about your draft submission, feel free to post in the discussion forums. Not an opportunity for product pitches, but we're very happy to platform that type of thing. And you guys will be getting a big update on where you can find us moving forward, like when our meetings are happening again. Like this will not be the last time that you hear all of the logistical updates. We're going to try to push out stuff to the website, stuff to the different repositories, etc. So we'll keep you well informed, but stay tuned. And with that, Thank you everyone for coming. It has been so great to like engage with you as a community and operate in the public transparently. So I really appreciate it. Sandra asked, what is the Monday meeting? So, the different working groups so far have been meeting on different days on alternating weeks. So the Rev 5 meeting used to meet on Mondays every other week. Now we're pushing it to Wednesdays. So, um, that's just a quick, if you were interested in the Rev 5 group, you can find the invite link on the website and subscribe to that meeting, but it will be being pushed to Wednesday at 1 p.m. And we'll kind of do like every Wednesday, but alternating between 20X and Rev 5 moving forward. Cool. Okay, it's a little bittersweet. This is like the last automating assessment one. Okay. All right, I'm gonna end the meeting. Bye, everyone.